How's it going, guys? So this week on the PhantomCave YouTube channel, we're going to be interviewing one of the biggest interviews this year alone. So in 2021, we're going to be interviewing the guy behind the new 3-part series that has been run over 3 years. That guy is Duncan Munro, and the artist for it is the one and only, the Sunday Phantom artist, Jeff Weigel. So I hope you enjoy this interview. It's going to take a lot of effort to get this out there, and I hope you enjoy it. So in question number one, Duncan Munro. For Duncan Munro, what is your history about being a Phantom fan, and how did you get to write for the Phantom? So basically, what is your history about the Phantom? How did you grow up with it, and how did you get to write an amazing Phantom story that is going to go down the legendary status?
Hi Bradley, thank you for having me on PhantomCave. It's a pleasure to be here, and it was fantastic getting the opportunity to meet you at Supernova in Sydney recently. You've set me some interesting questions here. So what is your history with being a Phantom fan, and how did I get to write for the Phantom? There's two very different questions there, Bradley. So my history with being a Phantom fan is when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I was an avid reader, liked reading comic books. I liked reading in the car. Dad liked it too. It kept me quiet on long road trips. And on one particular stop, the only comic that was in the general store when we stopped was a Phantom comic. And I had avoided the Phantom up until that stage. I thought it was black and white. I thought it was boring. I didn't like the superhero type comics. I didn't like Batman and Superman. And I read it and realised what I'd been missing out on. So very quickly started to find more and started my sequential collection along after that. And then as I grew older, did not lose that habit or that enjoyment of that character, and spent a lot of time trying to capture the stories that I didn't have and the stories that I'd missed out on. So that was how I became a Phantom fan, and 30-something years later, I still am. And how did I get to write for the Phantom? That is a podcast in itself, and it's also a award-winning comedy show by comedian Sammy J. But the quick story was that as a result of Sammy J, the Australian comedian, doing a show about his fascination with the Phantom and our friendship together, we met the publisher and editor from Fruit Publications and had a tour of the headquarters there in Sydney, and the owner. So we met Renee White, Dudley Hogarth and Glenn Ford, and Sammy mentioned that I had written some Phantom scripts, and Glenn and Dudley agreed to humour me and would read one if I submitted it to them. And so I disregarded all the ones that I'd written, and I went home and wrote a new story called Hero Complex, inspired by my friendship with Sam.
Now we have another question for Jeff Weigel. How's it going, Jeff? I know you've been doing quite a good job in the last couple of months with Phantom, the Sunday Phantom dailies and the Sunday Phantom story that's been running in the Phantom Sundays for quite a while now, and that's been like the last couple of months. But question number one for you is, what is your history with being a Phantom artist, and how did you get to draw the Sunday stories?
Hi Bradley, this is Jeff Weigel, and I am recording the answers to the questions that you sent me a while back. So here goes. The first question is, what is your history with being a Phantom artist, and how did I get started drawing the Sunday stories? Well, before I got the job as a Sunday artist, I didn't have any history at all with drawing the Phantom. I was contacted by Terry Beatty, the previous Sunday strip artist, and he asked me through Facebook Messenger if it was something that I would be interested in doing. I think he probably got my name from a friend of mine named Rick Burchett, who is an artist who has worked for many years in comics. And Rick has always been a big backer of the work that I've been doing in comics. Before Phantom, I had done graphic novels for kids for a number of different publishers. And so I didn't really have any background in mainstream comics like Marvel or DC. But through Rick, Terry contacted me and asked me if I'd be interested. He was going to put my name forth as one of the people that he recommended as a replacement for him. And I know that he recommended, half a dozen or so different people to King Feature Syndicate. And so they just ended up looking at my work from my website, which is jeffweigel.com. And they decided that I was the person that they wanted to use. And so that's how I became the Sunday Phantom artist.
Now, the second question for you, Duncan Munro, is did you grow up with the Phantom or did you discover the character later in life? So basically, did you grow up with Phantom? Have you had an opportunity when you were growing up to experience what the Phantom does to people and to experience the magical stories of the Phantom universe, or did you discover it like the character later in life?
This is a good question too. Did I grow up with the Phantom, or did I discover the character later in life? As I said, probably around the time I should have stopped reading comic books, I found this fascination with the Phantom that has not gone away. And what appealed to me about the character is his morality and his sense of good. It took me a long time to realise why the Phantom appealed to me, but it's because of how strongly he holds his sense of values, and through 21 generations, how that is something that has been consistently passed. Along with the mantle of the Phantom is that quest for justice and the sense of knowing what is the hard right over the easy wrong. It's something that is aspirational for people, I think, to have the depth of character and the sense of will that it takes to be true to your beliefs and to your values. And I think the Phantom is a great coach for people in learning those lessons.
So, second question for Jeff Weigel. I know I don't actually know, but did you actually grow up with the Phantom, or did you not grow up with it until you discovered it later in life and eventually became the Sunday Phantom artist because of that?
Your second question is, did you grow up with the Phantom? And in fact, I did. The Phantom ran in my hometown daily newspaper when I was growing up, and I read it every day. This was during the Cy Berry years, so this would have been through the 60s and into the 70s. And I always admired the strip and enjoyed it, and I always admired Cy Berry's artwork in the strip. Of course, he was sort of a very DC sort of style. He had done a lot of work for DC Comics in the 50s and early 60s, I think. And so that was his style was right in the wheelhouse of my taste, because I was a big DC fan back then. And so, yeah, I had a long history of reading the Phantom when I was a kid. I stopped reading after I moved away from my hometown because I no longer got the local paper, and none of the papers that I did subscribe to in the places that I moved afterwards carried the Phantom. So I had a lot of catching up to do when I got the assignment. And the first thing I did was go to King Features' website and go back and read the last, whatever they'd posted, which is to say more than the last 20 years worth of Phantom strips, so that I was sort of up to date. I was sort of pleased to find that the character was still very much the guy that I knew from my childhood.
Now we have a question 3 for you, Duncan Munro. What are your creative thinking processes when creating the 3-part series? Now, I know a lot of effort and a lot of time went into this 3-part story, and you're talking about in the interview that originally there was 5 parts, but then you cut it down to 3. So how was your creative thinking process on when creating the story and then getting it out to fans so they can enjoy it?
What was my creative and thinking process when creating the 3-part series? Also a good question, Bradley. The Baronkhan Saga, hero 3 stories that you're talking about is Hero Complex, they're held to account, and Rotten Apples, and together they tell a story about Rex and the Phantom, and each one of them has a theme within it about the relationship between Rex and the Phantom, and I wanted to explore the growth of Rex's character, because for a long time he, in a lot of stories, and we haven't heard from him for a long time, but in a lot of the stories that he's in, he's the person to be rescued. He's Robin. He's Batman's Robin, getting caught by the bad guy and having to be rescued because he's in a situation of peril. But I think that if you grew up in the jungle and the Phantom was giving you jungle training and you were exposed to all of the benefits of the wisdom of and knowledge of the local people that were training you as you grew up, about the land, about animals, about different parts of their culture, coupled with the ability to get a traditional education as well, and the Phantom teaching you how to be fit, how to eat right, how to make the best use of your own resources, and being that moral guide that I talked about before. You're not just going to be a foil that's helpless and gets rescued all the time. You're going to become a hero in your own right, and in his own way. I think Rex does that, but I think it would be quite a challenge for him because he grew up thinking he was somebody who didn't have influence and power, and so he grew up understanding that a person is an ordinary person is capable of extraordinary things, and then quite late in his development, he gets given the influence and power of a leader, of a world leader, a head of state, and I think that would be a tremendous challenge for somebody who's had that background. He hasn't grown up in that life and had that entitlement, and so he's a have-not who becomes a have, and so I wanted to explore the dichotomy of that character.
So question number 3 for you, Jeff Weigel, is the same question for Duncan Munro. What are your creative thinking processes when you're doing the art for the stories, and do you have any experiences or any sort of stories to tell the fans on how you created, how you did the art for the 3-part series?
Your third question is, what were your creative thinking processes when creating the 3-part series? I don't have a lot to offer on that because I didn't have any hand in the writing of it or the plotting or anything. I just took scripts and interpreted Duncan's stories. I didn't even know it was a 3-part series when I first started it. I had contacted Frew to see if I could get a little work from them. After I had gotten the Phantom Sunday strip, I wanted to do a little bit more, and so I contacted Frew, and they sent me a script. And they said it was by a new guy, and I didn't know Duncan then. I barely knew the people at Frew, to be honest. But I read the script and accepted it and drew the first part, and not realizing that there would be more to come. And eventually, the first one was a pretty big success with fans, and so Duncan did a second part, and I didn't even know that there would be a third part then. In fact, I gave Duncan something of a headache, I'm sure, by suggesting some rewrites of my own on that second script that turned out to be foolish attempts to redirect him from his original plan. Like I said, I didn't know there was a third part, and so I found it very confusing that It didn't reveal who the villain was going to be, and there was a character in there that I didn't know what the purpose of it was. And without revealing too much for anyone who hasn't read the third part of the tale, I was suggesting that he eliminate what seemed to be an extraneous character, but turned out to be a very important character in the third part of the story. So once again, my apologies to Duncan for trying to jam my thumb into the works. But like I said, the story was pretty much Duncan's from beginning to end, and all I did was interpret his script. And so that was pretty much my part in creating the thing, which is to say, just coming up with the visuals.
So question number 4 is for the same question for both creators. So Duncan Munro, we'll start off with you. Duncan Munro, how did you manage to collaborate with the Sunday Phantom artist? And the same for you, Jeff Weigel. How did you be able to collaborate with a Phantom story writer like Duncan Munro? Because I've obviously met Duncan Munro before. I met him in 2021 at the Supernova before everything went hectic in Australia. And so basically, how did you both manage to collaborate with each other? And do you have any stories relating to this question?
And how did I manage to collaborate with the Sunday Phantom artist on the story? This was the generosity of Dudley Hogarth and Glenn Ford, the publisher and editor from Frew Publications. A lot of good fortune on my part, and a lot of patience and sound guidance from Jeff Weigel. The only thing that surprised me more than Dudley and Glenn accepting my script for Hero Complex was when Glenn told me that the artist that they had matched me with was Jeff Weigel. He was quite subtle in the way he told me, and it was very offhand. And he said, "Oh, we found an artist for your story. His name's Jeff Weigel. You may have heard of him." And of course, I was well aware of the Sunday Phantom artist. So it was an absolutely amazing opportunity. And I thank Glenn and Dudley, and I am very appreciative of Jeff's generosity and patience, as I said, in helping me through bringing my first published Phantom script to life.
Your third question is, how did you manage to collaborate with Duncan on the story? And I think I pretty much, in the last answer, outlined that. There wasn't really much in the way of collaboration. We didn't interact too much on it. I got the scripts and pretty much dealt with them as they were. I think I made a few minor changes in dialogue here or there just to cut down on the number of words. And I don't remember any other details about what I might have done to alter things, but they were minor things. It's been so long now since I did the stories that I can't remember the details of that. But let me once again express that really the story is all.
So question number 5 is, and this question is for both of you. So what is your opinion on the 1996 Phantom movie, and do you think the Phantom fans will ever get a new TV show or a new animated TV show or new movie based on the Phantom?
You've asked another one there, Bradley, that's quite difficult to answer. What is my opinion of the 1996 Phantom movie, and do I think Phantom fans will ever get a new TV show or movie? There's 2 parts of that question. My opinion of the 1996 Phantom movie is I am grateful that it exists. It came at exactly the right time in my fandom and my development as a fan, because I was ready to see a live-action Phantom movie. I thought the casting was amazing. Billy Zane was portrayed an incredible depiction of the Phantom. That Christy Swanson was amazing as Diana. The other casting was really well done as well. The set design, the costumes, The locations were incredible. Amazing direction from Simon Windsor. That was a great choice for this script. And Jeffrey Bowen with his Indiana Jones background, I also thought was a great match to the source material. And I thought they did a very respectful job of capturing what was then 60-something years of legend and story and source material into a 90-minute film. I've got a few problems with the third act, but it's just celebrated its 25th birthday, and I still watch it and I still enjoy it. And do I think that Phantom fans will ever get a new TV show or movie? I think the character absolutely lends itself to some sort of serial telling, like a streaming series or an animated series to try and appeal to a different audience than the comics currently appeal to. And I'd also like to see a live action film, but I think that it would have to be I think the story would have to probably be about a different Phantom, not the 21st. And but I would like to see a live action series first, I think. So if I get to choose, I'd like to see a live action series on a streaming service, then an animated series, and then a film. Because I think then it would build the fan base up to the point where the film would be able to have the budget and commitment and creative team that it would require to do it properly. And there'd also be enough time passed since Black Panther, because I think if you look at that through a certain lens, Black Panther is very much the Phantom movie we never had. And as a fan, I hope that we get a new TV show or a movie. And as a creator, I'll do my best to ensure that happens.
Your next question is, what is your opinion on the 1996 Phantom movie? And do you think the Phantom fans will ever get a new TV show or movie? I liked the movie just fine. I had been a long ways from a steady Phantom reader when that movie came out. Like I said, I had moved away from home 20 years earlier, and so I hadn't been able to follow the Phantom. I could only compare the movie version to the sort of rough notions and recollections that I had from reading it as a kid. And I thought it all worked pretty well, to be honest. I know there's some difference of opinion about whether fans are happy with that movie or not. I guess you can count me as one of the people that thought it was a pretty good movie. And as far as whether we'll ever get another TV show or movie, your guess is as good as mine. I have no inside information on this at all. But if one ever does appear, you can bet that my ass will be in the seats along with all of yours.
So question number 6 is for Duncan Munro. Do you have any new stories coming soon for Phantom fans? So because the 3-part series that you did that spanned it over 3 years since 2018 or 2017, I quite liked the story. I quite liked it. It was different for me because it was different for most Phantom fans because no one hadn't really delved into Prince Rex or the King of Baronkhan Saga for a very long time. So yeah, it was what's coming soon. What stories are you allowed to share? And do you have any stories or relating to this question?
Do I have any new stories coming soon? So Rotten Apples has just come out in issue 1896. What I can tell you is that there are some scripts that are under consideration by Frew and King Features, and that some have been approved. And one of them is a historical story about a previous Phantom, about the 14th Phantom. And that's with an artist now who is working on it and bringing the script to life. And the other one is a series of short stories that is based at the commencement of World War II. So it's the current Phantom, and I am very much looking forward to seeing how that turns out, because the preliminary art that I've seen from the Australian artist that's working on it, I am very, very impressed with.
So question number 7 is for Duncan Munro. What in inspiration gave you the idea to write the 3-part series? So basically, what gave you the inspiration? What gave you the drive forward to actually write the 3-part series and eventually get it published by a few publications?
What inspiration gave me the idea to write the 3-part story for the Baronkhan Saga? Another good question, Bradley. So the inspiration came from, as I said before, I'd written Phantom stories in the past, mostly for myself as practice. I'd done some writing training and some screenplay training and developed some short screenplays. And I started my hand at comic script writing using the Phantom, mostly for my development. And then when the opportunity came to present something to Frew, I was so nervous about the opportunity and grateful for it, and grateful to Sam for his friendship and his support, that I went home and wrote a story, Hero Complex, that was exploring those themes with Rex that I mentioned earlier and about the Phantom. But it's also, Sammy J had done a story, for those of you viewers and listeners that aren't aware, about 2015 or 16 or something. Sammy J did a national sellout tour that won a few awards around the comedy circuit, telling his story about his fascination with the Phantom, and as a lifelong Phantom fan. And it was also, he played heavily on his friendship with me and how I was a Phantom fan as well. And he called the story, the show, Hero Complex. And so I went home with the idea of writing a comic book that told the story of our friendship, so the friendship between Sam and I, from my perspective. And masked in the story of Hero Complex between the Phantom and Rex is a theme of, and you can see it in Jeff's artwork on the first page, is Rex grew up looking at the Phantom as somebody who gave him an example of what you could be and the type of person that you could be. And as Rex develops and grows up and becomes a leader and makes his own life for himself in Baronkhan, and the Phantom goes to visit him, he looks and sees how Rex went from someone who was potentially influenced by him to someone who now influences him, and the Phantom looks at Rex with respect because of the man that he's become. And so I wanted to explore that theme, particularly through Hero Complex, but also through the three issues of the Baronkhan Saga. It's a common theme. And the inspiration I got for the others was, I didn't imagine that the first story would get made, so I wrote it so that it could just be a standalone story. But I had left the opening that it could be continued, and I had an idea of where I wanted it to go. And when Frew asked me for more stories, I pitched them a 5-part Baronkhan Saga. They wanted a 3-part one, and so I smashed parts 2, 3, and 4 together and made Held to Account and Rotten Apples.
So question number 7 is for you, Jeff Weigel. What gave you, and it's basically the same question as Duncan Munro's, what gave you the inspiration to draw the panels in the 3-part series? So basically, what gave you the information, what gave you the inspiration to basically draw the panels, draw what you wanted to draw in the panels, and do you have any stories on how you did that and how you got inspiration from sources.
The next question is, what gave me the inspiration to draw the panels in the three-part story? And you're asking for information, discussions with the writer and publisher, requirements for different types of sources, that sort of thing. The inspiration is always, for me, to try and do as good a job as the artists who inspired me to become an artist in the first place. All the Silver Age artists that I love so much, Buscema and Neil Adams and Gene Colan and Jack Kirby and on. There's a long list of people whose work I really admire. These days I draw most of my inspiration from old comic strips. Two in particular that I really love is, of course, Hal Foster's work on Prince Valiant and Jose Luis Salinas on the Cisco Kid. Both of which have been reprinted in recent years. Cisco Kid especially, I recommend. It's in the middle of its reprint now. I think they've done 5 or 6 volumes with many more to come. If anybody has never heard of Salinas and his work on the Cisco Kid daily strip, they should really check it out. It's really inspiring work, and it's every bit in the same league as Hal Foster's work and Alex Raymond's work. As far as how I worked on the book and what references that I used, especially in the second part, boy, there was a lot of reference to use because Duncan had a lot of difficult to draw things going on, lots of characters and lots of scenes with trucks and cars and motorcycles and a lot of technical stuff that's very difficult to draw. So I had to draw from a lot of different reference material and images that I Googled up to work on those things. And beyond that, it's all just sort of the standard practices of drawing a comic book. I don't think there's anything terribly unusual about the approach that I took to creating those stories.
So question number 8 for Duncan Munro. What tips would you give to young or older writers who might want to write their own stories? Because if you're writing your own stories and you actually think they're very good, do you have any tips on how you can improve your stories or how you can improve certain elements of your stories? So yeah.
What tips would I give to young or older writers who want to write their own stories? Another good question, Bradley. You're very good at coming up with good questions. That's why you've got a podcast. So the advice I would give, I will steal from, I think it was Voltaire or Winston Churchill, which is perfection is the enemy of done. So with any endeavor, but particularly with creative things, you can get stuck in analysis paralysis and always think that if you wait a little longer, you'll be more experienced or better. And the thing you make will be better. Or that there's always a way you can improve on it. Or that you're not quite ready yet. And so there's all these opportunities for you to procrastinate. But if you can accept that what you are going to do may not be perfect, particularly not the first time, you can work towards progress. And so I had put off a lot of my writing for a long time, thinking that I would get to it later. And it was only through that push that Sammy gave me that I was able to have the opportunity to add a comic book that I wrote to my collection. An author that I know gave me advice once that said, just write every day. Doesn't matter what it is, just sit down and write. It doesn't take long to write a page. Just sit down and write a page. And at the end of a year, either way, you're going to have a book. It might not be good, but at least you've done it. And the first draft never survives anyway. So don't let perfection be the enemy of done. That's the advice.
So question number 9 for Duncan Munro. What is your current opinion on the current Sunday and daily Phantom stories? Now, I know Sunday Phantom stories, they've been they've some of the more traditional fans have either been liking it or not liking the current Phantom Sunday stories, and that question will be answered in the next question that it asks Jeff Weigel. Now, but this is directed to Duncan Munro, and what is your opinion on the current Sunday and daily Phantom stories?
What is my current opinion on the current Sunday and daily Phantom stories? I'm conscious that you're also going to interview Jeff potentially about these stories, Bradley. So, and he knows where I live. So, but the current Sunday story is very distinctive from the daily story. So how Mike Manley and Jeff Weigel are approaching their work with Tony DePaul on the Sunday stories is very different, and I like both of them for different reasons. So with the Sunday stories, particularly the current one, Jeff is playing around with the history of the Phantom. So Tony's written a story where they're going through the chronicles and they're talking about previous Phantoms, and Jeff is playing in that space of what would the costume really look like. They didn't have Lycra 200 years ago, and so he's adding embellishments and creating his own vision of that character, but he's taking opportunities where possible to bring the stories that we're used to into it and the look that we're used to into it. And so quite recently he replicated panels from well-known Cy Barry stories that that's the chronicle adventure they're referring to in the story. He's used that and incorporated it, but brought his flavour and costume to it. And I think that's a great example of the excellent approach that Jeff has taken to being the custodian of the Phantom. And so working with Tony's script, he is putting the Jeff Weigel spin on it. And I think it's something that I love it, and I think it's very popular with the fans because it's a fresh look but maintaining the foundations of respect for the character, which I'm really enjoying. And the previous story, he did something similar where the Phantom did some DIY work and made the vault that had the room with the previous Phantom's costumes in it so that could be explored. And it's something that hasn't really been done to the extent that Jeff is doing it. And so I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. And Mike Manley, again with the current Phantom story, he is playing a lot with the visuals. So he's taking Tony DePaul's great script that is from panel 1, page 1, day 1, has drawn you in, and you want to know what his old man was telling the Phantom. Like, I need to know how this first panel resolves, and which is exactly what the daily needs to be. It needs to bring you back to wherever it is you're reading it to get that next taste of what the story is. But if you look at those panels over a period of time, and a great place to do that's on Mike's socials, because he regularly posts those panels together, and you can go and look at the story as it develops, and the art is really reflective of the mood of Tony's script for whatever he's writing. There's a bit of exposition in that setup of that current daily story, but some of the panels are the whole daily strip is the Phantom riding his horse. He's riding hero and he's doing some exposition, but it is, you just want to, it's a work of art, and you just want to study it. And while you're doing that, you're really thinking about Tony's words and where is this story going. And both artists are making the most of the tantalizing nature of a daily or a Sunday story. That's sequential. Here's a little taste. Here's a little taste. Here's a little taste. And so what do I think of them? I'm really enjoying them, and I'm looking forward to seeing more. Bradley, it has been an absolute pleasure to spend this time with you on PhantomCave, and I am looking forward to seeing much more of you, to seeing much more of your material, much more of your contact with creators. It's very reassuring to see content being generated about the Phantom. it's only going to help to get the word out there. It's a very appealing character, and hopefully through your audience, we can find a few more people that find the same fascination and admiration of the character as the current fans do. Thanks, Bradley. All the best.
At the end of the video, I hope you enjoyed this interview. I hope you enjoyed and what it has to offer, and there'll be more interviews coming this year, and there'll be even better interviews coming this year in 2021. So I would like to say thank you for watching. You do us a great pleasure on watching the content at PhantomCave Reviews, and as always, keep PhantomCaving. You can always subscribe, like, share, comment if you enjoyed this special interview. And as always, keep PhantomCaving, and we'll see you later.